Rodimus Review Week, Day 4. I'm TheNewSam. Let's get everything started. So today we're going to be looking at the figure that bridges the gap between Transformers and highly posable Japanese figures. I am, of course, talking about Kaiyodo's Revoltech Hot Rod. Revoltech Hot Rod, or Hot Rodimus as he was known in Japan and thus also on his packaging, was the third regular release in the Revoltech line of a Transformers character, right after Convoy, or Optimus Prime, and Megatron. And in keeping with the aesthetic for the Prime and Megatron releases, he comes heavily Dreamwave inspired, full of all manner of Pat Lee-isms. Now, with all the shit that Pat Lee did, and all the crap that everybody that worked for him had to go through, I got to admit still that some of his designs, when rendered in proper proportions, were actually kind of cool. Granted, they probably also weren't his to begin with, but the ones that were attributed to him, I should say. And this is no exception. He is a fantastic amalgamation of his G1 toy and his cartoon animation model. I really do like the way this figure looks. The paint, the detailing, the sculpting, everything is top-notch for this figure. I like the panel lines running all down various parts of him. Something that Dreamwave probably didn't start, but at the very least popularized in Transformers designs. He's got nice sculpted flame detailing on his chest. You may notice the Autobot logo on him is a sticker. The one that was originally on the figure, stamped on there, was missing a piece of it, and it really bugged me every time I looked at it, so I had to throw a Reaper Label sticker on there. The face, very decent sculpt on there too. You can see many design details carried over from the G1 toy. The flames are almost a spot-on match. The headlights, the waist, bearing very many similarities to that right there. Even the stickers on the toy, on the upper arm and on the legs, are rendered on here as stamped on detail painted on these silver pieces. Also, the spoiler on the back has a lot more in common with the G1 Toys spoiler than it does with the animation model. All in all, he looks pretty cool. Now, his articulation is pretty impressive, due mostly to the employment of the Revolver Joints that the Revoltech line is known for. These little joints operate on a pretty simple premise. You've got a ratcheting joint, along with two pegs to plug into the parts and allow them to swivel. This exceedingly simple design allows for some great articulation possibilities. Hot Rod's Revolver joint layout is pretty standard for every Transformers Revoltech release short of Convoy, because Convoy here did not have Revolver joints in his shoulders. However, any figure released after Megatron did, to allow for greater articulation of the arms. So articulation, Hot Rod has the aforementioned shoulder revolver joint, which allows it to come up and down, move forward and back, and also swivel a bit up here. The elbow, also a revolver joint, encased in this little boxy piece right here, like so, allows it to bend and swivel. He's got one in his neck, allowing him to look up and down, also tilt his head as though he's, say, dodging incoming fire or just looking down at someone. He's got one in his waist, allowing him to tilt up and down and turn. One at the top of each leg to allow him to kick out, swing it side to side, rotate it all around. One in his knee that allows for almost the articulation of a double-jointed knee. And he's also got one in each ankle, allowing you to position the foot down, up, or at some pretty exceptionally extreme angles. The articulation does suffer a bit due to the overall blockiness of the actual figure, but that's okay, because you need the robot to look blocky, so if it hampers the articulation a little bit, that's okay. It still has a shit ton of awesome articulation. But anybody that collects any kind of Japanese, highly posable action figures knows that it doesn't just end with the articulation. No, no, no. Option parts and accessories. That's where the real fun begins. For accessories and option pieces, Hot Rod comes with the following items. His 2 photon lasers, a couple of option hands for holding his 2 photon lasers, one hand with a finger pointing straight out, one hand giving a thumbs up, and an option head featuring the goggles that he used that one time in Transformers the movie. Swapping out the hands on this figure can be a bit of a chore due to just how little you have to actually grip and try to pull the piece off. It doesn't help with my giant ham hands either. So what I usually like to do to give myself a little more grip is pull the forearm off to begin with. Then you gotta kind of work in around the hand to try and get it out of the hole that it's in. It also doesn't help that this tiny little hand is on this thick little nub. And it really also doesn't help that the nub is a separate piece. On one of the hands at least, maybe more, I actually had to glue the peg back into the hand because it came off while I was trying to pull it out. This was remedied with Starscream due to the fact that his hands and the pegs for his hands were all a single piece. But anyway, with one hand removed, we can now employ one of the option hands. I think in this case, we're going to go for the thumbs up. And for the other hand, a holding hand, one of the guns. While I'm zoomed in, I also wanted to take a look at the detail on these guns. They are pretty well detailed. I've also got black painted inside the barrel. And the 2 guns are in fact a different sculpt, same as with the G1 figure. Granted, they don't feature the sort of wings protruding out the sides like the original G1 toy. But still, fairly cool. The hand, or the trigger finger on the hand kind of fits right into this groove here to make it look as though he's got his finger in a trigger guard. It looks to me like Hot Rod approves. Another thing that tends to be not terribly easy on this figure is swapping out the head, due to the fact that roughly 60 to 70% of the time when you go to pull the head off, it takes the revolver joint with it. Like that. And getting it out of there when it's stuck in there real good, not a simple task. Once the joint is back in place in the figure's neck hole, the second head can be attached. There we are. And now Hot Rod is rocking the visor and a much more stern expression. I actually prefer the expression on that head compared to the first one here, because this one's got the, you know, sort of youthful Hot Rod grin going on, but it just kind of looks a little unnatural. This one, however, is all serious business. Perfect for a gun-toting metal killing machine. As with my reviews of other action figures with high posability and interchangeable parts, I think I'm just going to run through a few poses and then finally wrap this all up. Walking the path of heaven, the Autobot that will rule over everything. Making use of his wrist blasters, or dual-wielding his pistols instead. I don't see this ending well. See? What did I tell you? Well, he won't be needing it anymore. Alright, so that concludes my look at Revoltech Hot Rod. All in all, not a bad figure. I picked mine up quite a few years back for probably about 15 to 20 bucks. They're a lot more expensive now, so I can't really recommend that anyone go out and get this, but if you're a fan of highly articulated, though non-transforming Transformers, this is probably a safe bet. So join me tomorrow. I'll be looking at another Rodimus figure, and we'll see you all then.